Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to Cosmologist Bernard Carl explores the mysteries of the universe with Sadhguru. So I don't think I'm going to be talking too much on this one. Hopefully I can, because otherwise what's the point of you watching my video? You might as well just have watched the original, which I hope you already have. And hopefully I have some decent thoughts about this. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started.
कालो न जानाति तव जननम् कालो न जानाति तव समापनम् दृष्टो मया तव महाकारः योगेश्वर काल काल योगेश्वर काल काल. Namaskaram. Namaskaram. So, because I said something in a language that you don't understand, I think I should explain a bit.
Thank you.
I would hope so. That would be amazing.
I'll make it simple. It's a chant talking about how cycles of time can either crush us or trap us, or if we ride them, it can liberate us.
Oh, okay.
Only one who is risen above the duality of one's existence, only one who is in yoga, which means one who has known the union of one's existence with everything else, only he will rise above the time. And only one who rises above the time has mastery over life.
I think the topic which has been given tonight is the discussion of making space and time for consciousness.
Oh, real quick, I wanted to comment on that. I don't know why I didn't pause it right away. Very interesting, he said the duality of it. That's very interesting because, again, Sadhguru does speak about yoga being unity and how if we all think of us as one as opposed to two. And interesting is this duality there, because I believe he's saying that we as people, normal people, think of life as duality, as in there's me and everything else. And one who rises above that, above duality and sees unity, will live a very happy… Well, he says you control life. How I interpret is it the control life or… Anyways, how I interpreted his last words about the one who rises above is that it's not that you're able to manipulate life. Your life you can manipulate. Meaning that you are no longer affected, and in the sense you are no longer bound by life. Not in the sense that you can do anything. God dang, that's actually a duality there. Not in the sense that you can do anything as in like you can break the laws of physics, but that you can do anything in your life and still be happy. It's very hard to word that because obviously there's laws and restrictions, and I want to be specific in what I say, but in the fact that you can do anything. And what I mean by that is that you can become a police officer, but you can fail, but you will still be happy. That's what I mean. Meaning that you can do anything. You don't have to succeed, but you can still be happy even when you fail. That's what I mean by you can do anything. It's a bit of a complicated word there, I guess. So again, I love that. How I interpreted it anyway was the duality, how people see time or just life in general as dualities, me and everything else, and then one who rises above it as in one who sees unity within everything. And the last quote that Sadhguru says about being able to control life as in not in the sense that you can manipulate other things, but you being able to do everything, whether you fail or succeed, and still be happy. Then you have control over life. because you are happy all the time. Right? That's how I interpreted it. Let me know how. I've always been curious. It's like, am I doing a good job of interpretation? Now, don't get me wrong. I could be wrong about this, but I could have some interpretations correct. And is that how you interpret it? Let me know. I'm curious about that one.
And so, one of the questions is, how does one escape time? Can one escape time? And you refer to cycles of time, which relates to the question of whether time is linear or time is cyclic, which is a topic of great philosophical interest. And in fact, that is something which I would like to talk to you about. And it's a question which arises both in the context of cosmology, which is my professional discipline. When we look at the universe, it's full of cyclic processes, and even the universe itself could be a cyclic process. Now, at the moment, most cosmologists would say we don't live in a cyclic universe because the universe is accelerating because of what's called the dark energy. We don't know what the dark energy is. It's meant to be some sort of cosmological constant, but it makes the universe accelerate rather than recollapse. So if you ask most cosmologists, they say, well, though the future of the universe is it will expand forever and it will get more and more dispersed, eventually we won't even be able to see the other galaxies. They'll be so far away. But that's interesting because if you read most of the religious texts, especially I think from the Eastern tradition, the Hindu and the Buddhist texts, there the indication is that the universe is going to recollapse and that you will actually have cycles of the universe.
Now that's interesting. Again, I said this before in my other videos. I've heard of the two theories a long time ago. One is the constant expansion of the universe, where everything will die and just get cold or something like that. And then one is that someone said that the expansion is slowing down, and some believe that it might contract on itself. I said this in one of the Sadhguru videos when he talks about the number 84 being a number, and he talked about maybe we're in the 84th iteration of this universe, as in it expanded and then collapsed. That being, the expansion is the first iteration, I believe, then the collapse, then another expansion, which is the second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. So this is the 84th one. I thought about that a long time ago. It's like, I wonder if that's true that, the video that I watched, it explained that, oh, they're thinking it might collapse, but they never explained that maybe it expands again and then collapse and expand. I thought of that sometime later. I didn't think anything of it because, it's just, who knows? But hey, maybe.
And I have to confess, personally, I've always favored a cyclic universe because everything in the world we know of has cycles. It turns out that the time of the cycle is something like 20 billion years. And that's remarkably close. I mean, if the universe is going to recollapse, it will recollapse on that sort of timescale, probably. And modern cosmologists have only discovered this in the last 50 years using their telescopes. And so it's remarkable that Buddha and maybe other mystics were able to get this information, whatever it was, 500 BC, many, many years ago. So it's like you have this inner space station. So we're spending, through science, we're spending billions of dollars to get this information, whereas one's getting it from these mystical insights for free. Well, of course.
It's not free.
Oh, not
it's
free.
not free. It costs life. It costs life.
Oh, it's not.
It costs life. It's not free.
I see. Okay, fair enough. Yes, fair enough. Yep.
And real quick on that note, I do believe there's a cost to everything in life. There's a famous black person, I can't remember his freaking name. He's more of a social commentator. Anyways, he talks about about essentially there's a trade in life. Essentially, there's nothing free. Everything comes at a trade. When you do something, you trade something for it in return. You could say equivalent exchange to some degree. It's not always equivalent, but there's always an exchange of some sort. So very much so with what Sadhguru is here saying, that discovering these things aren't free, and it costs all life.
Dollars come from somewhere else. Life goes waste looking at these things.
But to me, this is an important point about the link between science and spirituality. One thinks of them as being opposed. From my perspective, they're both studying the physical universe, and they can both be applied to study the physical universe from an outer perspective and from the inner perspective. And I think ultimately there is agreement. Well, if it's the same truth, if it's the same universe they're looking at, there has to be agreement. There has to be concordance. And I think that's remarkable. So I know there's been a tradition of inner science in Indian philosophy for many years, thousands of years. But in Western philosophy, the focus is all on outer science. And I think part of this union between science and spirituality will be the realization that inner science and outer science must merge.
I wonder how. I mean, in Indian philosophy, as far as I can tell, everything is always inward, right? Because you're looking for your true self, which you have to look inward for. I've not. Well, unless maybe talk about like your actions, karma yoga, in terms of your external, how you present yourself externally through your actions and thought, how you present yourself externally through your devotion, bhakti yoga, how you evaluate yourself of who you are, jnana yoga, through what you are not. Now, I can't say anything about Raja Yoga because that's just purely inward, I believe, because that's meditation. That has nothing to do with external. So unless that's the case, where getting enlightenment through your actions and thought, which is purely, mostly external, thoughts internal, of course. Bhakti Yoga, your devotion, which is mostly external, and then Jnana Yoga, which is using the external to discover who you truly are, if I understood those correctly. Let me know. So I guess maybe that's where the merging, I can see where that maybe the merging goes, but it's still, generally speaking, mostly internal though. All right.
And of course, my having this conversation with
So you're on the top, sir.
This is And by the way, whoever prepared this backcloth, it is beautiful. I mean, I don't know if it was done specially for this conversation, but all these equations, they make me feel at home. But the only thing I would like to say is we're talking about the physical universe because I am professionally a cosmologist. So I can talk about cosmology without getting into trouble. And so when we talk about cycles and the time scale of cycles, that's conventional cosmology. And so if there are any physicists in the room, you should be happy about that. However, I know this conversation, I hope this conversation is going to veer into other domains where one is going beyond the physical universe. Because I think one of the lessons one gets from, well, mystical insights is that there are other levels of reality beyond the material. I think I refer to this as the domain of post-materialist science. Originally, Sadhguru was talking about cycles of time, and I'm talking about, so far, cycles of time within the physical cosmology, but there are also cycles of time which go beyond physics, and I know we'll get onto that later. But I should maybe ask you to react.
Because today modern science, the methodology is to come up with a concept, make a theory, build a mathematical backbone, and then look for elements of proof which could confirm those things. I believe that's a methodology. The methodology of mysticism or yogic way of looking at things is to turn inward and look at what we are made of. This is coming from the fundamental, in science you would say an assumption. In my experience, I say from the fundamental knowing, the way I am made is not different from the way the universe is made. I am just a tiny bit, but still you can sit here with these little eyes, you can look up and look at a galaxy. This is because this is made the same way and we are able to reflect that. There are some studies, people say that they have looked at the vision and mindscapes of some insects or something, some experiments have been made where they're saying their vision and their thing doesn't go beyond their survival requirements. So this capability we have because we are able to reflect the entire universe within us if we wish. In fact, everything that we are seeing is only a reflection. Right now, these people seem to be here, but we are only seeing them the way they are reflecting in the firmament of our minds. There is simply no other way to see it. So having said that, the fundamental instruments of perception is just this. How we keep it. Different people can see different things based on how sharp they keep themselves. When I say see, I'm not only talking about visual apparatus. We see through the five senses and more. So, in this context…
Perhaps he meant to say not see through the five senses, but experience through the five senses. I can't see with my touch, but I can experience with my touch, sight, sound, etc.
The way we see this is because your cosmology, inevitably the other day, the boss didn't allow you to speak about time because he said, no, it's time. But you had spoken about space, which I see personally as a consequence of time. Well, let me just articulate in simple words what is the way we see the universe and see how many overlaps are there. And if there are things that don't overlap, we can examine why they don't overlap. It's like this. In the yogic principle, the universe was like this. This is usually represented as an arborist, a snake, a cobra running into each other, mouth and tail included, and a hood rising here. So, this is not the European arborist, I know, they make it a circle, but this is how it was. So we call this anant, that means it's infinite.
It's
infinite.
infinite, yeah.
Infinite, I'm sorry. We're Indian, you know.
You invented the concept.
No, I want to tell you it's not a concept. This infinite or infinity was like this. The nature of infinity, I don't have to tell you, but for everyone, if you make infinity plus 10, it's still infinity. Infinity minus million, still infinity. So, your mathematics don't work. You do plus, minus, multiply, divide, nothing. So, it was like this. You could do nothing with it. Then it unfolded and became like this. Then we call this shunya.
Oh.
Shunya means emptiness. It became empty. What was infinite became empty. This is very important to understand this.
So interestingly, whenever infinity, of course, you have the infinity symbol. Then whenever it unfolded, it became a zero. There you go, zero. Zero. Nothing. That's pretty cool. I guess maybe that's where the idea of zero came from.
What was that which is infinite? Was it not empty? We could not even call it empty or full at that time because it's infinite. There's no plus minus to it, no multiplication and division to it. So it was this way, it uncoiled itself to become nothing. Nothing means we must put a hyphen between no and thing. It is a no thing, but it has a presence now. This presence, I'm assuming, maybe this presence is what the modern scientists are calling as dark energy or dark force or whatever. But it's very appropriate because we call this shunya or kala. The word kala means empty, the word kala means darkness, the word kala means time, the word kala means space. All these four things became somewhat manifest because it became a kala. So this is here as emptiness, but we call this infinite space. Must mark my words, it's infinite space, not time, because there is no distinction. It is time which is unfolding to become space. So once it became kala like this, you can see it as emptiness, you can see it as time, you can see it as space, you can see it as the first manifestation of that which doesn't have a form. Anything that doesn't have a form is also called kala. So, what was infinite space became zero, now plus one is plus one, minus one is minus one. Suddenly, there is no physicality yet, but there is a mathematical foundation for its physicality. Now, once it became empty like this, the word shunya is, in terms of written word, for the first time it's seen about 400 BCE. There are documents where clearly the word shunya and the mark of a zero is there. It traveled to Arabia in early, the next part of how we count time today. Because those divisions are not there in our minds, because we have to communicate with the English-speaking world, we have also come that the cut-off date is somewhere 2000 years ago. Otherwise, we don't have those cut-offs in our minds. So I'm just saying, what are you calling it now? AD? It's not AD anymore, what are they calling it? CE. It's called CE now, Common Era or something.
Ah, CE, yes.
Yeah. So,
Real quick, I didn't know that. Huh. So what is it? I know it's BC, AD, and then was it 2000s it became C? I gotta look this up. Huh.
in the Common Era in the first, second century, or maybe by third, fourth century, it traveled to Arabia because Indian traders were maintaining trade routes from India, right from the bottom of India, that is southernmost parts of India, right up to Damascus, Jerusalem, Aleppo. Even today, Aleppo city is supposed to be 8,500 years old, and that city was built by taxing the Indian traders. So, the live transaction was a daily business, people were traveling quite a lot. So, it traveled to Arabia where they called it cipher. The word cipher again meant empty. This cipher came to Europe, in Latin they called it Zephyrium. That went to Venice, where it was the hub of many things happening in Europe, and there they called it zero, and the English called it cipher. These days nobody's using that word cipher. When we were growing up, it was common to use the word cipher in English language, but I don't know
as a code, as a secret code.
Oh, is it?
Well, the word cipher is to do, in English,
Zero.
is connected with
Yeah.
coding, but this is a different context.
Yeah. We used to use the word cipher as a zero. When say, it was used in a derogatory way, oh, he's a cipher, he's nothing kind of thing. So, this aspect, once it became nothingness, but it was a firmament of tremendous existence, but without physical form. Then we go into a more, a dialectical way of expressing this, where we say, we're calling this kala as a being, a large, formless, not large, infinite, formless being. Infinite cannot have a form, of course, so it's a being. And he breathes. He was inhaling. Inhaling is a long process, maybe running into millions or billions of years. There are calculations for that. I am not the mathematician for that. And when he exhaled, it's not that he has nostrils, he exhales from everywhere. If you did not have actually even our skin is it's not only perspiring, it's also respiring, So we are breathing through our every pore in the skin. Like that, when he breathed, that created a certain amount of energy. That we call as Shakti. Shakti came out of him. When energy came out of him, then this firmament of nothingness, which is a powerful force, it started reverberating initially, then caused ripples. Those ripples led to cyclical movements. So with these cyclical movements, the first physical forms came out and it all over burst forth. As these cycles became more and more complicated, from whatever we call as electrons, protons, atoms, planetary systems, universes, all these evolved because of the cyclical movements. Fundamentally, we see physicality as a consequence of cyclical movement. Our very birth is because of the cyclical movements in our mother's bodies, otherwise we wouldn't be born. That is a yogic doomsday you would like to know, sir. So studying these cycles, feeling these cycles in our own bodies and studying these cycles, things were figured out because we were more interested in how to transform life here and how to make a human being go beyond these cycles. As I said earlier, the cycles of time are such, they can crush you. Why in their childhood they were like this, and now they become like this, a lot of people. Time has crushed them. People think it's their experiences of life, this and that. No, that is only an excuse, it's actually time which has crushed them. Or the same time could trap people. They're okay, but they're bored and they don't know what to do with themselves.
Do you mean crush them in the sense that they die?
That will anyway happen, but when they're alive, they feel crushed by time. The cycles of time just crushes them day in and day out. Yeah. Many people wish the sun doesn't come up tomorrow morning, but it comes up and they have to go to work. It crushes them. In United States they have thank God it's Friday.
Yes, yes.
It means they don't have to wake up tomorrow morning.
Yes, yes. TGIF we used
Yes.
to… Yeah. At Caltech we used to have the TGIF celebration every Friday.
I wonder what Sadhguru means by crushing. The idea that I have is that, you're not getting enough rest. You are not spending your time wisely, as in, you're working all the time, and the time that you can rest or make yourself feel better, you're not doing that. You're being inefficient with your time. So for example, if you, get out of your job, go home, and the best thing to do is to take a nap and then to do some housework, would be the best way to use your time, as opposed to getting off work, doing housework, and then taking a nap. That could be a bad use of time. So again, I'm not saying one is bad and one is not. It's just that maybe that's the way it works for you, and because you're not feeling your body correctly, because you're maybe forcing yourself to do certain things, like you have to do this work, so you're gonna keep yourself awake to do that work, and then when you go to sleep, you're gonna feel groggy or whatever, when you could have just went to sleep, woke up, and finished the work. Maybe. But maybe, is that what he's talking about? Essentially, is that you're just being inefficient with your time and not listening to your body on what your body needs, and that's the reason why you're feeling like you're being crushed, because you're not only are you tired, well, you being tired makes a lot of things more difficult in life. And when something used to be this difficult, and then because you're tired now it's this difficult, and then it just keeps constantly going up and up and up because you're not letting your body rest, you're not letting your mind rest. So this little tiny 1% difficulty keeps climbing and climbing and climbing, where it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, when in reality it's always been this difficult, but because your inefficiency of resting makes it more difficult. Is that what he's talking about?
So, we want to break these cycles. So, any cycle naturally has a centripetal force and a centrifugal force. If you get caught up in the centripetal, you get crushed. If you ride the centrifugal, then you're released, a tangent is formed. So, to attain to this tangent is the goal of life in the East. We call this mukti, nirvana, moksha, whatever. Essentially, we want to ride the physical cycles in such a way we are liberated from the physical cycles. How did people see these things? How did people come up with these things? This is always a question. Well, how did the modern scientists see something? Today everybody is talking about Hubble and whatever the other one, John Space?
James Webb Telescope.
James Webb Space, whatever. What are these instruments? These instruments are just extensions of our own senses. Only because we have eyes, only because we have eyes, the telescope means something. Otherwise, what is a telescope for a man who has no eyes? Simply nothing, all right? It's just a pipe with a few mirrors and maybe lenses or whatever it is. It's just a pipe, it's a metal pipe. We can use it for something, but you can't use it because inside they've blocked it with so many things.
Quite expensive.
Expensive pipe. I agree with that. So I'm saying only because we have eyes, we are making instruments which will extend our eyes.
Indeed.
So, this extension was done in so many different ways. One of the things that we did was that we created energetic forms which would make us look very, very far. Today, unfortunately, it is all being misunderstood and misrepresented, but there were instruments with which we could look very far, we could open windows into the cosmos. These we called as our deities. These are not gods, there is no concept of God in the East.
Are you talking about modern telescopes or ancient
Both.
metaphors?
There were no ancient telescopes.
I meant metaphorical.
Yes, they saw things by creating energetic forms. You have definitely heard of, because he was in your neighborhood, Ramanujam.
Yes, of course, yeah.
So when people asked him, some 3,900 mathematical formulations he came out with, which is still being debated and discussed, and people are trying to understand what he wrote. When people asked him, he was dying of tuberculosis. He sat on his deathbed and simply poured out mathematics. When people asked him, how does this come? He said, my Devi, which means my goddess, bleeds mathematics.
Ramanujan was at my college, Trinity.
Yes.
But before my time, so I never met him. And to me, that is a fascinating example of how one can get information about the universe, not just through the intellect, but through inspiration. As you say, he thought he had his information.
If I should correct that, sir, I'm sorry, I'm intervening like this. You never get information through your intellect. You get information through your senses, and there in the intellect you mess it up.
Okay, I think Sadhguru was saying here is that your intellect knows nothing. It is nothing. It is a blank canvas. But through seeing and observing with your eyes, you can notice certain things. That tree looks a weird color. What is color? Green, brown trunk. Then all of a sudden you start hearing things like, what in the world? The train makes noises. So essentially, and talk and communicate. You can smell, it's like someone farted or something. Or taste. or touch something, oh, that's very cold or very hot, then your intellect starts getting filled with information. So your intellect knows nothing until it's collected by your senses, whether through listening from your teachers, tasting, touching, or your personal experience.
Well,
I mean to say you match it with the old information and try to make sense out of it.
I wouldn't like to admit that we always mess it up, but I think
No,
that,
no, I'm saying we're trying to make sense out of
Yeah.
it. But normally, what we think is sensible right now is actually blocking us, because what we think is smart, we can't leave. What we think is stupid, we can leave easily.
So you've made so many interesting points, Sadhguru, that well, I'm not sure I can remember them all, but can I react to some of them?
I will remind you.
Yeah.
Okay, actually I'm gonna pause it right there. A pretty good stopping point. So very interesting. And I never would have thought about that in terms of the intellect being essentially a blank canvas. Honestly, when you're born, you know nothing. But the second that you as a baby or whatever starts experiencing things through your senses, that's when your intellect starts being filled in. Interestingly enough, though, I was going to say our animalistic instincts, our reptile brain, as they say sometimes, that is different from our intellect, perhaps? I'm not sure. I would say no, but at the same time, it is, well, probably not, because again, a lot of people act without thinking. Are they really acting without thinking? As in a reaction of our instincts and animal brain. Anyways, that's the part one of this this thing. I can't even say it. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.